Throughout my childhood years, my father would often tell me stories of his father, David J.H. Livingstone. He would tell tales of tigers in Burma and his adventures in India, and I would sit and stare with wide eyes as I tried piecing together the story of a man I never knew.
My father was born in a village called Tranent in the outskirts of Edinburgh and was raised in a house that was built by my great-grandfather called Valley House. There was an illegal still at the bottom of the garden, and my father kept goats, chickens, rabbits, pigeons and a dog and a cat. His father left when he was born and went off to America, so my father was raised by my grandmother and my great aunt and my great uncle. He went to Glasgow College of Art, and he was going to be an illustrator with Walt Disney. But unfortunately Hitler came along and there was a war. So my father joined the RAF. And my father was travelling in a convoy. He noticed that everything had gone quiet. In front of the trucks came two Bengal tigers, and he said he'd never seen anything so magnificent in all of his life. And they were big cats. One of them rubbed itself against the radiator cap in one of the trucks, and the truck must have been 5.5 feet in height anyway. And they were just so nonchalant about the whole thing. They knew they were at the top of the food chain. Everything else was below them, and they didn't give a damn. And they just looked at my father and just wandered off through the jungle. But he got to India, and he was based in Calcutta. He told me once that one day he was sitting underneath a palm tree cleaning a rifle, which had a bullet in the magazine, and he fired the bullet accidentally, and he shot a monkey, and the monkey died. And this aged Sikh came up to him and said that India would always be in his thoughts. Until the day he passed on, India was with him every day of the year. It was remarkable to see. My father briefly stayed over in a place called Morecambe before going up to Scotland. And he was on a double-decker bus, which happened to stop outside of a cafe called Bruciani's in Morecambe. And he looked down, and then he saw this very attractive waitress. So he looked at her, and he went, "You, me, downstairs, 7 o'clock. And this waitress was so taken by his sheer cheek that she met him, and that was how they met. Well, they got wed, moved to Glasgow, and my father got a job as an apprentice designer in a company called Templeton's, which then was a leading independent carpet manufacturer. And then along came me in January of 1951. My father met his father in 1969. But he came over to Edinburgh and he wanted to meet Dad. So my father and my mother went over to meet him. They came back later on in the evening, and my father sat on the carpet with a handful of coins, and he just threw them onto the carpet aimlessly. And he just looked at me and he said, "He's just a little old American." And that was it. Never saw him again after that. But it was quite a poignant moment really for my father and for my mother and for me when he said that, because there was so much missing really that would never ever be accounted for or could ever be regained. He lost his job in 1981, but the funny thing was that within 2 weeks of being unemployed he had been offered a job in Amsterdam, New Zealand, Tasmania, California and Germany. And that was because he was a master mason. He was really angry at the thought of retiring and at the thought of having to retire because somebody told him to. He was always staunchly independent, my father. So he went back to college and did a degree in law, which I found quite remarkable. And then he got himself a job as, what was it? He was in charge of arts and crafts in various centres throughout Fife, which he enjoyed doing, he really did. And then he retired, but he retired under his own steam. He developed cancer, prostate cancer, which was inoperable. I saw him a day before he died, and he just ran his hand over my face very gently, and that was it. And the next thing I knew, he'd gone. But I've got no regrets. He had a good life. He enjoyed his life. If there is a heaven, then it's richer because my dad's bound to be there.